Radio Company business. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome to another edition of Sky Blue History Podcast with myself, Claudio Cardina, and of course the club historian Jim Brown. How are you, Jim? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I just wish this weather would improve. It's just awful, isn't it?
Is it not wet enough for you?
Wow. You expect better in July, don't you?
It's unbelievable. I went to a meeting last night and we couldn't actually hear what was happening in the meeting because the rain hit the windows so hard. It's just ridiculous. Don't know what's going on. And so of course it's the Sky Blue History Podcast, and last week we did 82 and 83, and we thought we'd carry on with 83, 84 this season. And after the mass exodus, the influx of new players. But before we talk about that, I just thought have a quick couple of minutes on England and your take on things at the end. I
thought it was a disappointing performance on Sunday. I thought Spain were far the better side. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, "Oh, who did you make man of the match?" And I really had to struggle with anybody who shone. And I think only Pickford and Gay, or however you pronounce his name, really came out of any credit. Even the normally consistent Declan Rice, I thought, was poor. He gave the ball away in crucial areas. I thought our big name players, Kane and Bellingham, were awful. I thought Mainu was invisible. I think he should have been braver with the strikers and started with Tony and/or Watkins and Palmer. I think you can see around Europe, countries are throwing their youngsters in. If they're good enough, they're in. It doesn't matter what age they are. And Palmer's proved himself to be, good enough to play on the international stage.
I was watching that game and I was thinking, what would Sir Alf do? Because he was in a situation in '66 where he ditched the wingers. Jimmy Greaves was injured and he changed the formation basically, didn't he? And then when Jimmy Greaves was fit, and Jimmy Greaves for me is the all-time best English goal scorer as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. No one better. His ratio is ridiculous. Yeah. And he never played him. And and he kept the team as it was, and he trusted the team that got them so far, and they went on to win the World Cup. Yeah. And I think in some ways, Gareth probably should have done that with Harry Kane and thought, I'll tell you what, now's the time to put you on the bench because we need more pace, we need more energy, and just more vibrancy. And it's a shame because he's resigned, as we know today, and yes, he's done well, but for me, two finals are great, quarterfinals, semi-final, but it's England, and with the players they've had for the last 4 or 5 years, I feel they should have won a trophy. Yeah, the players are there, and I think that's a shame. Mm-hmm. And they talk about the golden generation. I mean, it could be the Belgium scenario where it never happens. Where they've got all these players, and now we're in a bit of a conundrum because no one really knows who's going to step in. So that'll be the next bit.
Well, there'll be lots of speculation about that, won't there? I don't know who the favourite is. Is it Eddie Howe?
Well, I've heard Eddie Howe. Lee Carsley's up there as well because he's obviously with the under 21s. I think, wouldn't it? From watching him run around Walsall Common and keep him fit a couple of years ago to manage in England, that'd be quite impressive.
Well, he's done well with the under 21s, but I think it needs somebody with a bit more experience than that to. Yeah. We'll see. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah.
I think as long as they get a forward-thinking manager, I think the chances are they can still win a trophy soon. It's been far too long. So, 1983-84.
Yeah. First of all, I think just give credit to Mark Rainbow, who asked the question originally about he wanted us to talk about what happened in '83 with all the exodus of players and the massive rebuilding of the squad by Bobby Gould. So thank you, Mark, for that question, and to everybody else, keep your questions coming. We've got a few on the slate, but we always want more. We left off last week. We were talking about the tour to Zimbabwe, weren't we? And
yes, we were. Yes.
Now many of the disaffected players went on that tour, and as soon as they got back from that trip, they all started jumping ship. I think we said that eight first team players left the club in June 83, and Bobby was left with the job of rebuilding that squad. Who was he? Let's just talk about who he was left with. I guess, Harry Roberts was there from the previous season.
I can read you out the team lineup from the last game against West Ham, which was on the team board in the members' room.
Yeah.
So Seeley, obviously, he'd gone.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, he'd left. So Roberts was still there. Hortmanchuk was still there. Butterworth, Gillespie and Witten had left. Singleton played that day. He was at the club still. Haitley had gone. Hendry was still with us. And Steve Hunt and Melrose had gone. So that's...
No, Steve Hunt hadn't gone.
No, I said Hunt was with us and Melrose had gone.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's...
and I guess we also had, not on that list, was Jerry Daly. I think he'd been on loan at Leicester, hadn't he?
I mean, there's a piece in the programme. It says transfer trail. Farewell to Mark Haitley, Seeley, Thomas, Gillespie, Witten, Francis, Dyson, Melrose. And then, of course, I know we're going to talk about who arrived. But, yes, it's a bit of shambles, basically, I think the word is.
Yeah, but it did give the chance to have a clean slate, I guess, almost. And Bobby was quite slow in recruiting. I was looking at the scrapbooks last night, and we had 12 signings. 13 if you count Charlie George, who was on trial for a few weeks. But I think we started with Dave Bamber from Blackpool for 50,000.
Yeah.
Dave from Cardiff for 125,000. Now he'd actually dropped. He was obviously Man City player in the '81 Cup final. He dropped down to the 3rd division with Cardiff to get more game time, I guess. So he was probably the most expensive signing. Oh no, he wasn't. No, beg your pardon. That was Ashley Grimes, 200,000 from Manchester United. So I like to think that Ashley Grimes, whilst he was the most expensive, was the least effective.
Oh, he's terrible.
Sorry.
I mean, when he played for United, the odd games I saw him play, he seemed okay. When he came to us, it's like we signed his brother or his mother or something. It definitely wasn't him.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I think I remember him playing for Man United in a cup semi-final at Villa Park. Would it have been the previous season, probably, when United won the cup in '83, didn't they? So I think he scored in the semi-final.
Oh, he looked good for United, but yes.
Then we had Trevor Peake coming from Lincoln, 100,000, probably the best buy.
I was going to say the best 100,000 the club has ever spent on him. Ridiculous.
Yeah. We had Mickey Adams, came from Gillingham for 85,000.
Yeah, I like Mickey. He was a good all-rounder, wasn't he? left back,
Yeah.
left wing, left midfield. And a real trier.
Yes.
A good player. And he saved us in a famous game a couple of years later, didn't he?
Then we had Terry Gibson, 100,000 from Tottenham. Another well spent 100,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, because the thing with Terry Gibson is we'd all seen him score goals for Spurs. He had a little bit part for Spurs in the season before.
Yeah.
And he was buzzing, he was scoring, and it's just so small.
Yes.
It's small, the biggest backside you could ever imagine. He's a funny little player, but he could get in. Real terrier was Gibbo. He was a good player.
He'd been through all the England side, the under 17, under 18, all that. I think he played for the England youth team in one of the big tournaments.
Yeah.
But typical Spurs, it was very, very difficult for a Spurs youth player to get into the first team at Tottenham. Remember Graham Souness couldn't do it back in the 70s. Then we had a couple of bargain buys from Bristol Rovers, Bobby's former club, was Nicky Platnauer for 10,000 and Graham Withy for 5,000.
That's Nicky Platnauer was a good buy for 10 grand.
Yeah.
My dad really liked Nicky Platnauer. He thought it was great. He thought, it was just a bit hustle and bustle, wasn't he?
He was, had no pace, did he?
No, but he just got stuck in. It was just what we needed.
Yeah. And then I think the last signing before the opening day was literally 2 days before the season started, was Mickey Ginn for 60,000. Again, another bargain buy, really. He went on to play for almost 10 years.
I just think Mickey Ginn, he used to get that ball and just run at defences, and he's straight at them.
Yeah.
There was no dinky skills. It was just straight at them, and with a little sort of slalom run he used to do, and you didn't quite know where he was going to end up, but it was dangerous and exciting. Yeah. You got him. You got David Bennett doing the same kind of stuff. You got little Gibbo up front. Attacking wise, it wasn't too bad, was it? I mean, but we didn't know defensively how we were going to cope because we got no keeper apart from young Perry Suckling.
Well, we did sign Avramovich.
Like I said, we had no keeper
for the season.
We can come to him later on, can't we?
The Yugoslav international, and the other two players we haven't mentioned. Errington Kelly arrived from Peterborough, and he never played a first team game.
Right. I remember him being quite stocky, wasn't he? He was quite.
Do you know? I don't think I ever saw him play.
He was quite bulky. He was a big lad. He was like, he looked more of a boxer than a footballer from memory.
Yes. And then a few weeks into the season, the 12th signing arrived, and that was Sam Allardyce.
Yeah,
he'd been in America for the summer.
That was inspirational, I think. I think he did a good job for us, really good job for us.
He did.
And a lot better player than I thought he was as well.
But like a few others, he fell out with Bobby, didn't he? Ultimately, I think in Big Sam's book, he mentions a fallout, a promise made by Bobby, either for a new contract or a coaching role or something, and then Bobby changed his mind. So 12 new signings, but on the opening day, let's talk about the pre-season, because there's the most interesting pre-season friendly I think I can imagine. They played in Lisbon, Benfica.
It's mad, isn't it?
Isn't it?
The makeshift team.
Yes. It really was a makeshift team. And then they came back from Portugal. I think Perry Suckling had a blinder in Lisbon.
But we drew, didn't we? 2-2.
We drew 2-2, yeah.
And it's funny because years later we played them with Strachan's team. We got absolutely battered 7-something. At home, it was like the worst result ever, which set set the sort of standard for the season. It was shocking.
Oh. So they came back from Lisbon and went straight up to Scarborough for a game against an Alliance Premier League and got stuffed 3-0.
Oh well,
You just can't make it up, can you?
that's standard.
Yeah, but the teams that played the pre-season, there were a lot of the signings. They either weren't fit or they hadn't arrived, and they were quite makeshift teams. I know Charlie George played it in quite a few of those games.
But his knee that was shot, was it? It got problems, hadn't he?
I don't know what it was, but he was finished, wasn't he?
Yeah. I feel. I mean, really, because I remember we spoke about in our last podcast about when the rumor was Bobby Gould was coming, and there was a real buzz about this because it's like the Goulden Boy from the 60s. He's a Coventry lad. I know my man was excited. There's loads of people thinking, yes, Bobby Gould, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And I think he got a lot of slack because of that, didn't he? I think there was a lot of goodwill and the fans got behind him. I mean, there wasn't many of us in Highfield Road that season, but we just got behind him because it was Bobby Gould and we thought he's one of our own, basically. It's a good attitude, I think.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, we have to say that when you look at that season as a whole, it was a typical Coventry City season. We were, had a fantastic first half of the season, fourth in the table in December.
Yeah.
And then we went on one of these dreadful runs again and ended up having to win our final game to stay up. Yeah, it's a typical Coventry City season. So you're right about, I think Bobby did get a lot of slack, and he got even more slack the way they proved themselves in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was going to mention about the pre-season is the rumour mill, because we were out after so many players, the rumour mill about who was coming and who might be signing was incredible. I just picked up a few of the names of some of the players we were strongly linked with, we're talking to. Dennis Mortimer, I think he was coming to the end of his career at Villa. He was strongly linked. Kenny Burns was, again, probably coming to the end. He was at Leeds and we were linked with him. I don't know where he ended up. Joe Corrigan, goalkeeper of Man City. And Ken McNaught, the Villa centre-half.
Yeah.
And these would have been, big names coming to Highfield Road.
Instead of them, we've got Abramovich, Peak, which is great, Allardyce and Platino.
Yes. Yeah. So and there was trouble. Arthur Graham was another one, Scottish international. Really, he was. So I guess, but it was a combination of some of the best players from the lower divisions. Like Benno, Mickey Adams, Trevor Peake, mixed in with sort of reserves or fringe players from first division clubs like Terry Gibson, Ashley Grimes. I guess that's the only two, really, isn't it?
I think what he did was, didn't he scour the PFA best 11 of the third and fourth divisions? Because I think a lot of the players were in those teams. Probably. And that's what he did. He tried to sign the best players at the end of that season, knowing full well if they got the chance, they'll play in Division 1.
Well, yeah. And he, remember he was a manager at Bristol Rovers, so he knew the third division pretty well.
And really, we did okay, didn't we? Considering the players he brought in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Those, if you think Benno, Peake, Gin,
Yeah.
all went on to win the FA Cup with us.
Exactly.
Um,
Only 3 seasons later, which is mental, really.
yeah, and you know, we got more than our money back for Mickey Adams.
Yeah.
We probably lost money on Ashley Grimes. I think we probably made money on Platnar and Withy. So
Honest,
all in all,
I'm quite amazed we actually managed to pay that sort of cash anyway, because we were skins.
well, yeah, but don't remember they pulled in over £1 million from the leavers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll probably find the wage bill was reduced.
Yeah, but it was actually.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a car each.
Well, yeah, that was the other shock, wasn't it? Talbot ending their sponsorship, which was a bit, I think it was a big shock, really.
Of course, Talon, local pen company from Coventry, came in. And no one had heard of them.
A global sponsor.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know what they paid. It wouldn't have been a great deal either, but it's certainly better than nothing. So how did we start the season?
Well, we opened the season at Watford, and only 5 debutants. So we've mentioned quite a few of the ones that stayed, but the other couple that were left over, Steve Jacobs started, and Keith Thompson, Gary's brother.
Yeah,
he was there, but it was a great start, to be honest, wasn't it? You know, winning 3-2 at Watford. Because Watford had Watford had,
they finished second the year before, didn't they?
They did.
They're in Europe, weren't they?
They only lost 3 home games the previous season.
Yeah, it was a massive shock, and I think that's one of the first time we heard the song "Ba Ba Bamba." Remember?
I don't remember that. No.
Yeah. Ba Ba Bamba. That's what we used to sing. Yeah.
But looking at the Neville Folger's match report, Perry Suckling got a 9. He was man of the match. Yeah, so we probably soaked up a lot of pressure. I wasn't there, but I know their second goal didn't come till the 90th minute, so I think it was a fairly comfortable win. You wouldn't have dreamt of that, would you?
No, but what I did notice, we played Spurs away the next game, so it's unusual to have 2 away games back to back at the start. Was there a reason for that?
It wasn't the first time. It does happen. It does happen. Then I said at Spurs, Peaky got his debut and got an 8 off Folger, and Graham Withy came off the bench to score the equaliser in a 1-1 draw. Fantastic. Great result.
Yeah.
Spurs had finished 4th the previous season, so it was a good result. You know, Tottenham had, Hoddle, Brazil, Archibald, Danny Thomas playing as well. So it's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, Tottenham were strong, weren't they? Basically. Well, to be honest, any side against us was going to be strong because we got a bunch of 3rd and 4th division players playing, basically, and the rest from the season before.
So we had first home game was Everton at home. Mickey Adams scored in a 1-1 draw. The crowd, just over 12,000.
Right.
Disappointing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a shocker. We said last week the 80s, just unbelievable crowds, as in like terrible. Yeah, I mean the big clubs, even Arsenal, were only getting 20,000 for some games at home.
Yeah,
now they're getting over 60. Yeah, and look at West Ham as well. What they get now to what they used to get then. So yeah, it wasn't a great time for football on the terraces, that's for sure.
So game 4, home win over Notts County. Came from behind. Gibson Platnauer scored the goals. 2-1 win. Who was the manager of Notts County? Larry Lloyd.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, so the Jimmy Cyril, whatever his name was, what was his name? He'd left. Guy with the funny teeth.
Gone. Yeah, he'd gone.
He seemed to be there for years, didn't he?
He did. He was. Yeah, he took him from the 4th division to the 1st. But I think he was quite old actually when he stepped down.
Yeah, the funny looking bloke, wasn't he?
Notts County won 4-0 at Leicester before that.
Blimey.
They were a difficult side. I put in my mini match report that former Man United midfielder Ashley Grimes runs midfield with panache.
Who's Panache? Is he a Frenchman? I don't know if you signed somebody called Panache.
Yeah. I think that was probably the first and last time he ran the midfield.
couldn't run a bath. That's incredible.
So after 4 games, we were 4th in the table. Very good start.
Well, yeah.
And then we went to West Ham, and the wheels fell off.
Oh well, that happens. That definitely happens when we go to West Ham. We don't get many points there.
2-0 up after 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Lost 5-2.
I'm sure Stevie Whitten scored 2 thunderbolts, didn't he, that day?
He did,
Sure
yeah. And Dave Swindlehurst got a hat-trick.
He was a big guy, wasn't he? He was a blonde hair, wasn't he? Quite hustling, bustling forward, wasn't he?
Yeah.
They got some good players, West Ham. You know, Phil Parks in goal. Stewart, Billy Bonds was still playing. Avin Martin, Devonshire. I'd imagine. Cotty, Brooking would have still. They had a good side, West Ham.
They did.
They were good.
So, game 6, Leicester at home. Gordon Milne returns to Highfield Road, they lost their 6th game in a row.
Blimey!
Did they get relegated? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Must have picked up a bit. So Platt now scores again. That's his 3rd in 3 games. And Terry Gibson scores, and a late consolation goal for Gary Lineker.
Blimey! He used to. I'm sure he used to play out. I think I've heard him say this. He used to play out on the wing to start with, and then they eventually started playing down the middle because they realised he's quite quick. And he could finish better than he could cross the ball. Basically, it's almost like they had this lad there who got loads of pace but didn't know what to do with him, and then they realised he could score goals. And
he played up front this day. So they then they lost a couple of games at Sunderland, at home to Ipswich. Allardyce made his debut at Sunderland, came back from the States. And I think there was a fallout with Daly at some stage, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I don't remember when, but he fell out with Daly, and he fell out with Steve Hunt as well. I think Steve Hunt was peeved he didn't get a move that summer because he was a top class player.
Yeah.
If anything, him and Danny were our best players, under Sexton, I think.
Well, and Bobby Gould can be quite a fractious person at times, can't he? He's very heart on the sleeve, and
very Marmite.
He's up and he's down. He's quite an emotional character, and he's had a flare with lots of people.
Yeah,
it wouldn't take him much to resign, put it that way, as we know.
And then we won at Arsenal. Dave Bamber scored the only goal.
Yeah, Bamba.
Yeah, we got
because he'd got a blood virus or something. This mystery virus where he couldn't play, could he? He seemed to be out forever.
That's right. Yeah, he was. He got some infection, and they couldn't diagnose what it was.
Yeah, they thought it was glandular fever and something else and something else. It was some sort of condition with his blood or something.
Yeah, I think it got into his bloodstream through his toes or something.
Yeah, it's
Very strange.
he struggled, didn't he? He really struggled.
Yeah. So the win at Arsenal was very, very good. They'd signed Charlie Nicholas for probably the cost of our whole squad in the summer.
Champagne Charlie, as they used to call him.
Charlie, yeah. I wrote in my match report, Charlie Nicholas looks forlorn.
Yes, Champagne Charlie.
Then we had our usual home defeat to West Brom, which happened a lot in the 80s. Cyril scored for them. With the equalise, but a chap called Perry got the winner. Do you remember Perry?
No, I don't remember him. No, I don't actually.
But it was an error by Mr. Avramovich.
And West Brom were on the downslide, weren't they? Then really,
They were.
They weren't. You know, I think they may have got relegated. Not maybe the season after, not long after.
Yeah.
They were struggling, weren't they?
They were, yes, because they'd lost Cunningham, hadn't they, and Batson, and the one who went to Man United,
Remy Moses.
Moses, yeah. And Brian Robson they'd lost, hadn't they, as well?
Yeah.
So Gary Thompson was playing for them up front with Cyril.
Yeah.
But the winning goal for West Brom, a dreadful error by Avramovich, who lets Perry's shot through his legs.
Yeah, well, he was. You know what? He was dreadful for us, Avramovich. But I'm sure I spoke to Notts, because was he from Notts County? Was he, or did he go to Notts County?
Notts County.
They thought he was absolutely fantastic. And I thought, well, that's not the guy we've got then, because this one definitely isn't. It's strange. He was all over the shop.
So the following week, the good run started. We won at Stoke 3-1. I remember that was at that game. Stoke was struggling. And Benno scored, Gibson got a second, Mickey Thomas pulled one back, and Bamba got the third near the end. Then following week they won at St Andrews 2-1. That was the game when Allardyce almost ended Mick Harford's life, I think. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It's the most dreadful challenge. And he didn't even get sent off.
It was allowed back then. But
Harford was taken to hospital after that game.
You know something though? I've got the list here, the Birmingham players. That is, I mean, you got Hartford, Phillips, Hopkins, Gale, Blake, Vanden Howe, Hagan. They've got some battlers in there, haven't they? That's a night out, that is.
Yeah.
That's a proper night out, and Digbeth and that lot.
Yes.
There's going to be a fight, isn't there?
Definitely.
They were proper players, that team was.
Yeah.
It's a scary lineup, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat Vanden Howe.
Yeah, I mean, he's just ridiculous. I mean, he won the league with Everton, but he knew how to leave a foot in, put it that way.
Yeah. So that was a good win. Following week, home to QPR.
And of course, we know who arrives.
We do. He'd come about a month earlier, played a couple of reserve games, but Stuart Pearce hit the ground running, didn't he?
Yeah. You know what? I've never. It was mad, wasn't it? Because it's funny because as fans, I mean, this is a guy who's come from non-league, and we're kind of excited to see a non-league player because I think the build-up that Bobby Gould had given him, basically, saying he's just going to be a superstar, and he was eventually, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Legs like thighs like tree trunks. It was ridiculous. And he'd been playing non-league football from when he was 16, so he was like a hardened fullback.
Yeah.
And I think the first few tackles were just incredible. It was like, hey, we've got a player here.
Yeah,
It was incredible. It's
and I can see him now running up that touchline, overlapping fullback and putting crosses in. He just from day one, he was just amazing.
Yeah. And
I still say it's the most complete debut I think I've ever seen by a Coventry player.
Yeah, if ever somebody was born ready, it was Stuart Pearce, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I just wish he'd stayed longer at the club. It's such a brilliant signing, really.
So the following week, we followed that up with a 0-0 draw at Molineux. Wolves hadn't won a game at that stage. They 13 without a win. We should have won there. We were all over them.
Now this is Wolves with their new stand, isn't it?
That's right.
Going, and we were sat so far away from the pitch, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it was almost like you could put a car park in front of you and the touchline. It was, and we spent most of the game just laughing because we couldn't believe how far away we were. I mean, a Continental Stadium, that's normal, isn't it? You got that massive running track, but this was so weird.
But isn't it the same stand that's there now?
Yeah, I think they just moved everything across, didn't they?
Yeah,
I think it's the same stand.
The stand we were in at Molineux last season in the cup game.
Yeah, and it's weird because obviously everything's moved over now, hasn't it?
Yeah,
but it was just a
40
strange,
years on.
Yeah, it's still good, isn't it? Though, although the turnstiles are a bit tight, I think they're based on people being thinner back in those days.
Yeah,
I struggled to get through.
So. The unbeaten run continued, a 0-0 draw against Southampton. And we've got to mention the sending off of Steve Hunt for a red card he got for a headbutt on Steve Williams, which left Williams unconscious. Dreadful.
Yeah.
I think I used to like Hunt, but after that, I just went off the guy. That was a dreadful challenge. And he ended up with a... Go on.
Do you think he was trying to play his way out of the club? Do you think that's what was happening? Make it to a point where... Because you're right, he was completely off it, wasn't he? That whole season. He wasn't... I think, because eventually, obviously, he went, didn't he? But
he did. He went. Yeah, he went in the transfer deadline day to West Brom.
Yeah, I think he just wanted to get out, didn't he? Basically, and I think he did everything he could possible to get out. Basically, that's why I look at it now. Yeah.
Well, he only made 13 league starts that season.
Yeah, definitely. There's something there, and he didn't want to play.
No. So he kept the run going. The following week, the 4-2 win at Luton. Amazing result.
It was actually.
Yeah. Oh, Les Seeley got some stick that day.
Yeah.
And then Liverpool at home, one of the all-time great games,
which I missed.
Oh dear! You saw a match of the day, though.
Yeah, it's basically because we had Bubble had a football team Saturday and Sundays, and if I didn't go to an away game, I would normally turn out for them, and have the radio with me to hear what was going on. But they were short. They had about 9 players, and they're playing at home. And I just thought, we're playing Liverpool. Then we're going to lose.
0-0.
I know, exactly. Well, I'll just help out the football team. And I took my little transistor radio with me. And of course, the kickoff is at 2:00, local football. So by the time the game finished, it was like the start of the second half, pretty much. And it was just a few minutes before Terry Gibson got the 4th goal. And it was bizarre because they didn't quite give I couldn't tell if we were winning or not because of the commentary. Because nowadays they tend to tell you the score quite often.
Yeah.
And I thought, what's going on? And then when they mentioned it, I thought, that can't be right. We're winning 3-0, and then Terry gets a 4th. I thought, this is ridiculous. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I thought, I didn't go because I thought it was going to be a boring 0-0 or we just lose 1-0 or something, Yeah, I missed it. I think in the space of from about 1970 to then, which was like 13 years, wherever it was, I'd only missed about 5 home games because of maybe I was ill or
Yeah.
which wasn't bad because I was 5 when I first started going, and that was one of them. Yes.
Well, you missed a cracker. It was just an amazing game. I remember Platnow. I was in the cop. I don't know if you remember, but the cop there were only about 8 rows of seats.
Yeah.
In the cop, and I was in the daughter, and the first minute, Nicky Platnow gets on his hands and knees and heads the ball over the line. Yeah, and Terry just had one of those games, didn't he?
Well, it was Liverpool.
Game of his life.
Was it Liverpool's biggest defeat since they'd got hammered by Villa?
That's right.
A few years before, I think it was like 7-5. That was a 5-2 or 7-2. It was a big result, wasn't it? They got battered by them. I don't know what it was. I can't remember now.
Yeah, it's the first hat-trick against them for 12 years.
Yeah. So I think people don't realise that didn't happen to Liverpool. They just did not concede that many goals and not score with the players that we've got.
Yeah.
Especially a team like Coventry, that we wouldn't normally do that to a side like Liverpool in those days.
Well, yeah, they got to the European final that season. That was the Heysel season, wasn't it?
80. No, 84. I think it's 84 was Roma. I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So they got to the final.
Yeah, they got to the final. But
yeah, it was 85 was Heysel, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just brilliant. It's I couldn't believe, and I missed it. Which must have put us in about 3rd in the table, 4th in the table.
4th in the table, yeah, 4th.
And talk of Europe, no doubt.
Yeah, and Joe Fagan, the Liverpool manager, said that we were title contenders. Oh dear.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So then they had a couple of draws away to Norwich, 0-0, home to Man United on Boxing Day, 1-1 draw, biggest crowd of the season, over 21,000.
Yeah, it started to pick up, didn't it? Because we had 20,000 against Liverpool.
Yeah.
So
then the wheels fell off at Forest as usual with 3-0 defeat on just after Christmas, and the last game of the year was I was at Goodison. We drew 0-0, and it was dire. It was the worst game I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, this is the game where even Match of the Day said they struggled to find any highlights, and they wanted Howard Kendall out, didn't they? The Everton fans. I mean, it wasn't just us. Everton were absolutely terrible. And
they were in the bottom 6 of the table, and there were only 13,000 at the game.
Remember, the gate was ridiculously small for Everton, and they've been absolutely terrible.
So that New Year's Day, no, 2nd of January, home to Sunderland, we won 2-1. Withy Daly scored. I suspect that was Daly's swan song.
Yeah.
But from that point on, it was a disaster. Apart from the FA Cup, we've got to mention the FA Cup. 3 games against Wolves. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I saw them all because Peaky scored, didn't he, at Wolves, and he equalised, didn't he? Is that extra time?
Late, yeah. 85th minute he equalised at our end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then we went to extra time. There were no more goals, and then we took him back. The second replay, we tossed for venue, and we won the toss and had it at Highfield Road and beat them 3-0 quite easily.
Yeah, I can't remember too many second replays in our history.
No.
There hasn't been any.
We had one in '63
Yeah,
against Portsmouth at White Hart Lane. In those days, the second replay was at a neutral venue.
yeah, because that game against Wolves normally would have probably been at Blues, wouldn't it? The second replay, or Villa, or something like that. Or
But I think they wanted to guarantee a decent gate, so they so there were over 17,000 for the second replay at Highfield Road.
And we've not had.
Let's not forget. Pardon?
We've not had a second replay since, had we? After that, had we? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But the Wolves, got to remember, Wolves were relegated. They were finished bottom of the table.
Yeah.
They only won 6 games all season. We really struggled to put them to bed. But they won at Anfield that season. Do you remember?
Sorry?
Wolves won at Anfield.
Yeah. I do actually.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, it was worse for them because I think within the 3 seasons they were in Division 4.
Yeah.
They went all the way down to the bottom, didn't they?
They did. So we're through to the next round of the cup. Went to Hillsborough. I think the game was postponed on the Saturday.
Yeah, it's definitely. We travelled up midweek, definitely, because I remember it being dark.
Yeah, I drove over from Sheffield, from Cheshire to see the game, and we should have won, actually.
Yeah, that was a game, Jim, where we were on the coach and we're about to get off, and the police came on. It was one of these coppers said, we're all blokes on the coach, really. Said, right, lads, I warn you now, leave all your weapons, all your beer, or bricks or whatever, leave them on the coach. We'll hand them on the way in.
We'll what?
We'll hand them to you on the way in.
God.
So we had the longest walk ever to the ground. I don't know. I can't. It seemed like a really long walk from where they park the coaches.
Yeah, down the hill, was it?
Yeah, it was a really long walk.
Yeah,
and I remember we sat behind the goal, top tier, and you're right. We played really well that day.
Yeah,
we lost 3-2. 3-2.
Yeah, we were 2-1 up, weren't we? With about 15 minutes left, and Gary Bannister. And then they got a controversial penalty. It was, I can't remember what it was. Was it handball? Oh, yeah. The ball hit Ian Butterworth's arm.
Oh, right.
The ref gave a penalty. And the ref, they found out later, the ref was from Yorkshire.
Yeah. Because Sheff Wednesday would have been Div 2 still, were they? Or 3?
They were, yeah. I think they won promotion that season, didn't they?
So was that with Jack Charlton? Was that with Jack Charlton, was it? Or
Howard Wilkinson, I think.
Howard Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a good squad, didn't they, Sheffield Wednesday, for a few years.
Yeah, big. They're all big guys, aren't they? Mel Sterling, Shirtliff, Mick Lyons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a good team. So out of the cup and plummeting down the league table. Same as the 82-3 season, 13 without a win, 3 points out of 39.
Yeah, do you think it was just a case of it caught up with these players who were so used to 3rd and 4th division football, reserve team football? It must have been hard for them, really. I mean, it was. I mean, it was still a massive jump even then, wasn't it? You know, it's not.
I think at first it was. I think it was a bit of a lack of luck at first. There were a lot of late winners against us or late equalisers, but then as the run went on, I remember we lost to Notts County again, and we were very poor. And then I think we lost successive home games to Spurs and Arsenal, conceded 4 in each game, and you thought we're going down. And they signed. Well, they sold Harry Roberts and Hunt,
Yeah.
and they signed Tommy Langley on loan and Mick Ferguson on loan.
Yeah.
And thank God they did sign Fergie, because
Was going back a few games, was the Stoke game at home where it was an absolute calamity for the keeper. And there's a story in there that Bobby Gould sacked Radi Abramovich in the changing rooms at half time, is what the story was. I don't know if there's much truth in that or not.
Yeah, well, but he said after the game that Radi would never play for the club again.
Yeah, and this is what was Bobby Gould was all about. He couldn't help himself. I mean, that's a private conversation. He just blurted it out to everybody, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's never going to play for us ever again. Yeah. And of course, Perry Suckling came in. It's just,
poor old Radi. I've never met him actually. I'd love to have a chat with him about what happened that day.
Is he part of the?
No, he isn't.
Is he still around? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he didn't. Was it him that became a professor at some university in Yugoslavia or something?
Oh, right. Maybe you should. You've stepped down from that role now, haven't you? So you can chill out now, can't you?
Yes. So I thought our numbers up, and then Ferguson came in, and fortunately we had Wolves at home. We're the worst side in the division, but it did need a very, very late winner from Ferguson to get the points. The crowd was 8,500. So a lot of the fans had given up, I think.
We got Fergie from Blues, didn't we?
Yeah.
And of course, you scored 2 or 3 vital goals for us.
Yeah.
Where Blues weren't scoring any. They were going down, weren't they? It was the weirdest loan ever.
Yeah, and what happened on the final day was just a fairy tale story, really, because he scored for us against Norwich, and we beat them 2-1. And Blues went down as a result.
Yeah.
If Fergie hasn't scored, Blues wouldn't have gone down. I think they drew 0-0 at home to Stoke.
I'm not sure. Is that the game where Bennett scored direct from the corner?
Yeah, he got the winner. Yeah, 20 minutes from time.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that one.
Yeah, and late on, Rosario for Norwich hit the post.
Yeah, we've had plenty of those.
Yeah, and even after we went in the lead, if Blues had scored and won the game against Stoke, we'd have gone down because they had a better goal difference. It was that close.
Yeah. We had a disastrous game at Southampton, didn't we, as well?
We did, yeah. I wasn't there, thank God, but 8-2.
And of course, Lloyd McGrath's debut, wasn't it? I believe
it was. It was. Yeah, the stinker.
I think it was described a lot of people as running around like a headless chicken, and then later years that was just Lloyd's style, wasn't it? He just did run around a lot.
Yeah.
That's the sort of like he was 100% full on, get the tackles in, but. Yeah, that was a baptism of fire. Southampton, the Dell was a very tricky place to go to.
It was,
it's a strange ground, wasn't it? With a 3-tier terrace in behind the goal, which looked like you shouldn't be stood on it, basically.
No, and the crowd were always very close to the pitch, weren't they?
Yeah, it was a strange place.
And we also, those 2 wins over Wolves and Forest, I think we thought, oh God, we're gonna be safe. And then they lost 4-1 at Man United, 8-2 at Southampton, 5-0 at Liverpool. And you just thought, this is it, we're going down. I honestly thought we were going down.
Yeah.
And the crowd for the final day fans came out to cheer him on, for almost 14,000, which wasn't bad considering we had 8.5 against Wolves about a month earlier.
we're probably lucky we're playing Norwich, because in those days, I think we spoke about this before, our record against Norwich was magnificent at home. It
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
if it's out of all the teams, I mean, I know it shouldn't be, but it happens that way, doesn't it? Where you just have teams you beat and teams you
yeah,
can't. I mean, I can't believe Barnsley haven't won in Coventry for 100 years now. I know we haven't, which is crazy, isn't it? And I'm thinking, lots of people have beaten us in those years.
yeah.
And like, we can't beat Preston at their place, so it's just weird. Yeah, absolutely weird.
So
do
all
you
in
think,
all, it was a pretty desperate season at the end.
so I mean, I don't know if you managed to look at any of the old pinks and that. By the end of the season, had the fans turned at all a bit and thought maybe Bobby's not up to it, or was it just we gave him a bit of leeway because of the size of the squad and the actual squad itself?
Yeah, I think the limitations of the squad had become quite apparent after Christmas. When you've got players like Ashley Grimes, who's not really doing it. Steve Jacobs and Sam Allardyce at centre half. Martin Singleton got quite a few games. He wasn't really good enough for the first division. So I think the limitations of the squad were, very, very clear. And I think the fans probably gave them, thought, well, after what happened last summer, it's not a bad show, really.
Yeah. And it's, yet again, against all odds, we managed to stay up, which was quite amazing at the time.
Yeah. I was just looking at the side that finished the season. How many of them, got kept on? Because they did sign some interesting players in the following summer, in summer of '84, like Oggy and Killer and Kirk Stevens. But I guess it was farewell to Steve Jacobs and to Sam Allardyce and to Jerry Daly, to name a few.
And of course, at that time, we had John Sillett was he our youth coach or reserve coach?
Reserve team coach, I think. Yeah.
And George was there as the commercial manager, wasn't he, at the time?
He was, yeah.
And so I think everybody thought at the time we got like Bobby Gould, George Curtis, John Sillett's at the club. It felt like a bit of a little family going on, which is probably why I think our own fans just stuck with them. But
I suspect that on the financial side, things weren't particularly good because they must have been losing money on a weekly basis with those sort of crowds. I think the final average was just over 12,500, which was actually 2,000 up on the previous season. So, so there was a bit more optimism there.
And I know the following
good.
And the following season, the fans did turn, didn't they? Because it wasn't great.
No, well, Bobby was out by Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah,
he was sacked at Christmas.
And of course, Don Mackay came in, didn't he? Which looked like a good appointment at the time, but I don't think we just never warmed to him, did we?
No,
I don't think we warmed to him at all. And very, very interesting times those days. And 40 years ago, which is scary, Jim, is all I can say.
Very scary. Very scary.
I just, 40 years previous to then would have been in the middle of the World War II. So that's how mad it is.
Exactly.
And you think about that, the 40 years from say the end of the war to then 83 compared to now to 83, the changes in the game. I don't think there was a great deal of change in those 40 years, really. Compared to now, where it's so technical. It'd be interesting to have a look back on stuff like that, because I find that fascinating how even the last 20 years, how it's changed.
It has changed enormously.
I mean, obviously, apart from
Not
the
always
final,
for the best.
no, there's a lot of stuff. If you could, I mean, a bit off the cuff now, but if you could have a couple of things brought back, what would you fancy bringing back into the game that's now doesn't seem to be there anymore?
Sam Allardyce's tackles.
Yes, that would be good. I mean, yeah, I mean, I know they'd hate it now, but I used to love it when they used to have the second replays and things like that. It just,
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember the Arsenal Sheffield Wednesday? It was 5 matches, I think. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was like the Tuesday, Thursday, then the following Monday, and it just kept going and going.
Yeah. I think the one thing I used to like was having these double headers at the start of the season and at Christmas.
Yeah.
Where you played the same side. You played like the first season in the first division. We played Forest the first midweek away, and then a week later they came to Highfield Road.
Yeah.
And that went by the by at some stage, maybe in the 70s.
Yeah, I think they stopped that because they thought if anything had happened the previous game, it could either be the players or the fans. It rolled over to the next game, didn't it? So,
but they used to have the double headers at Christmas as well, and at Easter, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't think our fixtures are congested like they used to be at Easter and Christmas. I think
they aren't.
I can remember where you'd have 3 games in 4 days. Sometimes it was absolute madness, really. But I mean, the players got on with it, and the squads weren't that big, and you expected to see your first 11 every game unless there was an injury.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. I remember in '72, we played Tottenham away on Good Friday, and then Man United at home the next day.
Yeah.
They wouldn't put up with it now, would they?
No. Especially Pep Guardiola, he wouldn't be happy with that, would he?
And because Easter Tuesday was a bank holiday in Coventry, a works holiday in Coventry.
Yeah.
Very often we played away to a team on the Monday and at home to the same team on the Tuesday. Very often.
It's interesting as well because as fans, you just accepted it and you went to the game. Now there's loads of grumblings when the game gets moved from a Saturday to a Sunday for TV or something. I don't know, you just accepted it. I mean, I know it was more regimented then. You had the date set in stone, basically.
Well, they were,
But I don't remember missing midweek games as a kid at all. Yet it seems to be an issue nowadays, which is a shame.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, some families say they can't deal with the kids and all that. I think, oh dear, never mind. That's another subject. Completely.
I think it'd be when I was young. It was exciting to go a midweek game, and I knew I had to go to school the next day, but it sort of motivated me more.
Yeah, I kind of felt with the midweek game when I was a kid that I was doing something I shouldn't be doing because it was at night.
Yeah,
and I'm not in bed.
Yeah,
and I'm going to get home. Gone. Well, those we used to kick off at 7:30, didn't we? In those days, it was a bit early. It was. I thought it was great. I'd be up till about 10 o'clock at night. It's.
The other thing I always remember about going to night games in Coventry is after Leamington, Coventry seemed so cosmopolitan. With crowds and crowds of people and different things going on. And after Sleepy Leamington, it was so cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't.
We're coming from Whitnash, so I know exactly what you mean. Yes. It was totally different. I can remember we used to drive in as a child. It's still there, the Ferodo Bridge, as you drive into Coventry.
Yeah.
And I knew we were getting closer, and then we'd swing round and then go up and over the ring road.
Yeah.
Towards Highfield Road. And I used to think it did, as a child, it seemed massive, basically, compared to where we were from.
It was, it was.
And absolutely loved it. And even now, I like the night games. I know we've got Oxford this season. It's the first home one at night. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. Before we go, because we've gone over an hour, briefly, Callum O'Hare has gone to Sheffield. I'm slightly surprised. I just thought, I don't know. I just thought he was wanting to play Premier League football. Maybe nobody came in for him. But to me, Sheffield United, yet again, I don't know. It's not a kind of club I thought he'd want to play for. I thought they don't really excite me.
My theory, for what it's worth, is that I think it's all about the money and a 4-year contract. I think he's probably in the back of his mind, he's got that ACL he's had.
Yeah.
He's made for life, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
He's made for life. And the other aspect of the injury is I think some clubs will be very, very wary of signing a player who's had an ACL. I know Coventry, I don't know what the policy is at Coventry City now, but at one stage, they were, especially after Jody Jones, they were very nervous about a player's injury history.
Yeah, and I suppose as well, it's only recent years we've had a really good setup and recovery for injured players, like the background stuff. I mean, So I think if he had been at a top Premier League club, they're going to have the best people ever you could imagine to sort this injury out. But I think that clubs may look at that and think, well, has he had the best care ever? Probably not, and not up to the sort of care we want. So,
it's all about risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're giving somebody a 4-year contract. Okay, the Blades haven't paid a transfer fee, so all they've got to do is pay his wages. But they've got to play for 4 years, whether he's fit or not, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't think they've spent a penny yet, because I think Kiefer Moore is free. There's a lot. I'm not sure how much they can spend. I know they've had this money, the parachute payment, and of course, Jim, that's what we're battling against as well. The parachute payment. It's
but they'll be paying Kiefer Moore massive money, won't they?
Yeah,
massive.
Yeah. So, and I'm thinking, I'm sure we can do it without paying the massive money. I'd like to think so.
Well, I think Coventry have got a plan, haven't they? It's a project, and they're not going to buy big names. How many of the players they bought in the last 3 years have we heard of before they came?
Exactly, and I'd say 75% have been pretty decent. So, and the ones they've brought in so far this summer, I think. I'd like to think we're going to have an exciting season.
Just before we go, the one player I've watched him in training a bit on the unseen and saw his goal against Port Vale, but that's Abiku.
Right.
He looks very, very sharp.
That's good, because we do need more players coming through our academy into our first team.
Well, we do, but if they're not good enough.
I know, but that's what we need, don't we? Because they can save you a fortune, and then you make a fortune.
Yeah, but he's very pacey, and that's what you need in this day and age, isn't it?
Definitely.
Anyway,
right.
We call it a day.
I think we will. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Talking about stuff from 40 years ago.
Yes.
Makes me feel so old. Well, we'll be back next week with a bit more. If you want to contact us, of course, email jim@claryborton@gmail.com. And, if you want us to talk about more recent history, we can do that as well. We may do that in a few weeks. We could try,
yeah.
Let's face it, the recent stuff's been pretty good as well. So, yes. But anyway, let's... we'll be back next week, Jim. So I'll chat to you next week.
Okay. Good night, Claudia.
Good night.
company dismissed. Thank you very much.